So we are moving ahead to section 11.5. We're going to learn how to write the equation of a circle. And this is something that you'll do in Algebra 2, Pre-Cal, and other classes as well. So this is a pretty important section. Make sure that you take a look at page 615 in your book. As we do the equation of circles, two formulas that we need to remember from chapter 1 are the distance formula and the midpoint formula. So I'll point that out when we get there. When you are writing the equation of a circle, the two most important parts are the center and the radius. And as long as you know those, you can write the equation of the circle and you can graph it. The standard form of the equation of the circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where the center is hk, that's an ordered pair, and the radius is r. So notice that the equation says equal to r squared, but the radius is just r. So when you find your radius from the equation, you have to take the square root of what it's equal to. Also notice that in the equation it says minus h minus k, but in the ordered pair it's a positive h and a positive k. Every time you take the h and the k out of the equation or put it back in, the h and k are going to change signs. So you'll see in the examples as we go along how that works. So for the first example, if I were to give you this equation of x minus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 16, because this is in standard form, if you compare it to the formula at the top, then the center would be the point 2, negative 3. Notice that when we pull the 2 and the 3 out of the equation, they change signs. So it goes from a minus 2 in the equation to a positive 2 in the ordered pair, a positive 3 in the equation to a negative 3 in the ordered pair. The radius would be 4 because the square root of 16 is 4. So to graph a circle, what you do is you're going to plot the center. So you're going to plot 2, negative 3. And then from that center, you're going to take your radius and you're going to go 4 to the left, 4 to the right, 4 up, and 4 down. And then you connect and draw your circle from there. The next example gives us x plus 1 squared plus y squared equals 25. So on this one, the center would be negative 1, 0. And you may say, well, there's no number with y, so what do I put? Well, that's why we put 0, because that would indicate no number being there. So negative 1, 0 is our center. And the radius would be 5 because the square root of 25 is 5. So again, to plot, what you do is you plot the point, or to graph, you plot the point negative 1, 0 as your center. And then from there, you go up 5, down 5, left 5, right 5, and then connect and draw your best circle. For this next one, you've got x minus 3 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 5. So the center would be the ordered pair 3, 5. The radius, you would have to take the square root of 5, which is approximately like 2.2 on your calculator. So if you were listing the radius, you would write square root 5. In order to graph it, though, you have to use the 2.2. So the way that we do that is we plot our center, we plot the point 3, 5, and then you just go 2.2. You say, how do I do that? Well, you go 2 and then a little bit further. So you do 2.2 to the left and right, 2.2 up and down, and draw your circle. Now, what if we switch it, and this time I give you the center and radius, and then you have to write the equation. So now you're given the center of 2, 7 and a radius of 3. This 2, 7, that's your HK, and of course radius, that's your R, so that's 3. So when you take the standard form of the equation, notice that I wrote that out here. If h is 2, we're just going to substitute a 2 for that h. If 7 is k, we're just going to substitute 7 for the k. And then we substitute the 3 for the r. Now notice that it's a positive 2 and a positive 7 in the ordered pair, but when you put it back into the equation, it becomes minus 2 and minus 7. And then of course we finish by putting 3 squared equals 9. So the answer in bold here, that's your equation of the circle. With the next one, what's tricky about this one is that you're given a radius as 2 square root 3, so you need to be really careful about when you square that. The center is given as -4, 1, so that's your HK. When we substitute that back in, notice that in the answer, it goes from a -4 in the ordered pair to a +4 in the equation, +1 in the ordered pair, -1 in the equation. And then to do r squared, to take 2 root 3 and square it, when you square 2 root 3, that means you're doing 2 root 3 times 2 root 3. 2 times 2 is 4. Root 3 times root 3 is 3, so 4 times 3 is 12. If you're putting this in your calculator and then saying, well, I'm not getting 12, it's probably because your parentheses aren't correct. You need to have all of the 2 root 3 inside parentheses with the 2 square exponent on the outside. Sometimes, though, you're not given the center and the radius, so what would we do? Well, this is where those formulas are going to come in. So at the beginning, I said that you might want to use the distance formula, maybe the midpoint formula. So let's see what we're going to do here. On this one, it says, given the center 3, 4, and the circle goes through the point 0, 8, write the equation of the circle. So if you're given the center of 3, 4, that is your HK. So you could go ahead and put that into your equation, but the problem is we don't know the radius. So if you draw a picture, let's look at what's going on. Your center is this 3, 4, and we are told that our circle goes through the point 0, 8. Well, if you draw a circle through that point, centered on 3, 4, this is what you get. And the distance from the 0, 8 to the 3, 4, that would give your radius. So because we said distance, that would imply distance formula. Go back to chapter 1, look it up if you need to. So to find that radius, we're going to take the square root of 0 minus 3 squared plus 8 minus 4 squared, which gives us the square root of 9 plus 16, which is the square root of 25, and so that's 5. So our radius is 5. So when we write our equation, we would take x minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 25. To take this even further, now what if you're given a question where it says write the equation of the circle given the endpoints of the diameter as -1, 0 and 5, 3. So now what's happening is you don't even know the center, nor do you know the radius. So let's start by finding the center. The center would be the midpoint of the diameter. So we can use the midpoint formula, again from chapter 1. The way that we do that, we take -1 plus 5 and divide by 2, which would equal 2. Take 0 plus 3 and divide by 2, which would be 3 halves. We're going to leave it as 3 halves. So our center, our HK, would be 2 3 halves. But now we need to find the radius. Now you could take the center and one of these points and use the distance formula to find the radius. But what's going to happen is you're going to have fractions underneath your root, and that could get tricky. So what I think is easier is to find the length of the diameter and then cut it in half. So if we use the distance formula to find the diameter, we would take the square root of -1 minus 5 squared plus 0 minus 3 squared. And when you evaluate through, you're going to get root 45. Now, even though that factors down, don't factor it yet. So root 45, that's the diameter, which means the radius is half of that, so that would simply be root 45 over 2. Remember, we've talked about that to take half of something, if it's not an even number, you just put it over 2. So writing the equation, you take your HK of the 2 and the 3 halves. When you put it in, you get x minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 halves squared equals. Now remember, the formula says you're supposed to do r squared. Our r is root 45 over 2. You're just going to square the top, square the bottom. So if you square root 45, you get 45. And when you square 2, you get 4. So that's our equation. Your homework is on page 617. It seems like a lot. It's not. It's just spread out. I didn't want to do 1 through 46, and I'm sure you didn't want to do that either.